Welcome back to Miles Reads, that I'm Miles. Today, we're diving into the book, What Money Can't Buy. There's a common saying, any problem that can be solved with money is not a real problem. It's true that money can buy more today than ever before. But this has led to a troubling phenomenon. More and more aspects of life that were never considered part of the market are now being governed by the logic of buying and selling. Market thinking is steadily seeping into and dominating our lives. This forces us to stop and ask, where should we draw the line? What are the things that money shouldn't be able to buy? This is the central question Michael Sandel explores in What Money Can't Buy. The author, Michael Sandel, is a political philosophy professor at Harvard University. Many people know him from his book Justice and the famous Harvard course of the same name. It was one of the most popular courses in the university's history, with videos of the lectures translated into dozens of languages and the companion book becoming a global bestseller. While this book may not offer simple answers, it inspires us to rethink our relationship with money and markets and to reflect on the complex dilemmas we face in our daily lives. First, let's look at what money can actually buy in America today. In California, for $82 a night, you can upgrade to a quieter, more comfortable private jail cell. During rush hour, $8 will get you into the express lane on the highway. There are even parents who have struck deals with their children, paying them $1 for every thank you note they write. Sandel points out that when we put a price tag on something, we are implicitly treating it as a commodity. But common sense tells us that not everything should be for sale. The most obvious example is a human being. Slavery is abhorrent precisely because it treats people as property to be bought and sold at auction, completely stripping them of their human dignity, and dignity is a priceless value that money cannot purchase. So, if there are things money can't and shouldn't buy, how do we determine the proper boundaries of the market? Consider this list of what sound like new ways to make a buck. For $777, you can rent out your forehead or another part of your body as advertising space for a temporary tattoo. You can earn $7,500 by serving as a human subject in a clinical trial for a pharmaceutical company. You can make anywhere from $250 to $1,000 a day working for a private military contractor in Somalia or Afghanistan. If you're overweight, you can get paid $378 for losing 14 pounds in 4 months. These transactions, once unimaginable, are now commonplace. We are living in an age where almost anything is for sale. This sends a dangerous signal. Market values are encroaching on domains of life where they don't belong. In these areas, market logic is drifting further and further from our moral compass, and we urgently need to reconnect the two. For instance, a gubernatorial candidate once proposed allowing drivers to pay a $25 fee to legally speed on certain highways. You could even get a transponder that would automatically deduct the fee from your account whenever you wanted to speed, exempting you from police penalties for 24 hours. He estimated this would generate $1.3 billion in annual revenue for the state. The proposal was ultimately shot down by the Highway Patrol. The reason is obvious. Public safety is paramount. A human life cannot be measured in dollars, and any plan that could increase the risk of traffic accidents must be rejected. So, why do we feel uneasy about a society where everything can be valued in monetary terms? Sandel identifies two main reasons: inequality and corruption. These may sound abstract, but they have a direct impact on every one of us. Let's break them down. First, money exacerbates social inequality. In a society where everything is for sale, life becomes much harder for those with limited means. The more things money can buy, the wider the gap between the rich and the poor. If money could only buy yachts, sports cars, and luxury vacations, the poor could still get by. But when money can also buy better health care, access to elite education, and even political influence, the wealth gap strikes at the very root of equal opportunity. For example, a world-famous national park in California attracts millions of visitors each year, but has only about 900 campsites, which are offered at a nominal fee of $20 per night. During peak season, these spots are nearly impossible to get. This gave rise to scalpers, who would snatch up the $20 permits and resell them for hundreds of dollars. After receiving numerous complaints, the Park Service cracked down and explicitly banned this practice. We see examples like this all around us. Sandel mentions hearing about a similar phenomenon in China involving scalpers at hospitals. It's incredibly difficult to get an appointment with a top specialist, and some people wait in line for days without success. Patients with urgent needs are forced to buy appointments from scalpers at exorbitant prices. The scalpers exploit this supply-demand imbalance by hiring people to stand in line, hoard the appointments, and then resell them at a massive markup. The people still waiting in line are left to wonder, why can they just pay to cut the line? The rule is supposed to be first come, first served, but now its highest bidder wins. Would you agree with this system? From an economic perspective, markets prioritize efficiency, allocating resources to those who value them most, as measured by their willingness to pay. This logic would suggest that the people buying from scalpers have the most urgent medical needs. But that's not necessarily true. People who are critically ill but cannot afford the high prices are shut out of the system, creating a profound inequality. Sandel argues that scalping erodes the principle of fairness. Markets and queues are two fundamentally different methods of allocation. The first come, first served ethic of a queue embodies an egalitarian principle, asking us, at least in some situations, to temporarily set aside privilege, wealth, and power. The pay-to-play logic of the market is its exact opposite. This practice is not only unfair to the poor, but also breeds corruption and corrodes social order. Second, money can corrupt and degrade our lives, diminishing the meaning of things we hold dear. Sandel argues that using money where it doesn't belong to buy goods that shouldn't be treated as commodities corrupts their intrinsic value. For example, paying your kids to read might get them to open a book, but it destroys the simple joy of reading for its own sake. Getting into a prestigious university by paying your way, rather than through merit, cheapens the sense of honor and achievement that comes from hard work. This is the corrosive effect of money. Similarly, when a woman gives birth only to sell the child for profit, her actions corrupt the very meaning of motherhood by turning a child into an object for sale. When we commodify certain things in life, we are treating them in a way that is inappropriate to their nature. Sandel calls this a form of corruption or degradation, measuring something by a lower standard of value than it deserves. Consider an experiment conducted by two economists. They divided students into 3 groups to raise money for charity. Group 1 simply received a motivational speech about the importance of charity. Groups 2 and 3 heard the same speech, but were also offered a commission on the funds they raised, with Group 3 receiving a higher percentage. Which group do you think raised the most money? The answer is Group 1, the students who work for free. They outraised both of the groups that were paid. The second most successful was Group 3, high commission, and the worst performing was Group 2, low commission. What does this tell us? First, it shows that financial incentives can work, as the high commission group did better than the low commission group. But the more profound insight is why both paid groups were outperformed by the volunteers. Paying students to do a good deed changed the nature of the activity. It transformed canvassing for donations from an act of civic duty into a job. Money crowded out their public spirit, turning a moral commitment into a commercial transaction. Here's another example. Parents everywhere have been in this situation. You're late to pick up your child from daycare because of traffic or a late meeting at work. This is a headache for the teachers, who also want to go home on time. To solve this problem, one daycare decided to impose a fine on parents who were late. What do you think happened? The number of late pickups actually increased. This might seem counterintuitive. Shouldn't a fine discourage lateness? What changed was that the introduction of money altered the social norm. Before, parents who were late felt guilty for inconveniencing the teachers. Now, they saw the fine as a fee for a service. They felt they were simply paying for the teacher's extra time. This small fine carries a big meaning. There's a crucial difference between a fine and a fee. A fee is a price you pay for a service, like tuition, and carries no moral judgment. A fine, however, expresses moral disapproval. When a park fines someone for littering, It's sending a message that their action is wrong. Yet some people, when caught, will say, "I paid the fine, so I can litter if I want." This is infuriating because even though they paid, we still believe they did something wrong. They fail to see that a park is a shared public space, not their personal garbage dump. And there's an important epilogue to the daycare story. After a while, the sinner got rid of the fine, but the rate of late pickups remained high. This shows that once money has corroded a moral obligation in this case, the duty to be on time, the eroded norm, is very difficult to restore. Let's look at one more case, this one involving wildlife conservation. Have you ever heard of protecting animals by hunting them? The black rhino is a critically endangered species, and many African nations lack the resources to stop poaching. So, some conservation groups and governments came up with a market-based solution, a limited number of legal hunts. The South African government, for example, authorized 5 black rhino hunts per year, auctioning off the permits for as much as $150,000 each. This instantly became an exclusive activity for the ultra-wealthy, who eagerly bid for the chance. The black rhino is notoriously difficult to hunt, making the experience highly attractive to them. This expensive hunting tourism also created a new business opportunity. Local ranchers began breeding and raising black rhinos on their private land. In theory, this controlled the number of kills while helping the captive-bred rhino population to grow. From a market perspective, this seems like a win-win. The ranchers make money, the hunters get a unique thrill, and an endangered species is saved from extinction. But from a moral standpoint, the practice feels repulsive. Why? First, it caters to a perverse desire, the thrill of killing. Paying for the privilege doesn't change the nature of hunting an endangered animal. It's a desire that shouldn't be indulged in the first place. Second, paying to hunt commercializes and trivializes the act of killing. Hunting for survival is one thing, turning the slaughter of a majestic animal into a recreational sport is another. No amount of money can justify this distorted mindset. All these cases illustrate that in many contexts, money can corrupt our lives and even backfire on a moral level. Using money improperly exposes us to immense moral risk. Let's end with one final example. An employee at a major U.S. retailer died of a heart attack while making a delivery. According to his life insurance policy, the insurance company paid out a $300,000 benefit. However, the money didn't go to his wife and children. It went to his employer. It turned out the company had taken out the policy on him and named itself as the beneficiary. His wife was furious and sued the company. She demanded to know how the company he worked so hard for could profit from his death. It was completely unethical. Furthermore, neither she nor her husband had any idea this policy even existed. She argued that this practice of betting on an employee's life should be condemned. A spokesman for the retailer admitted that the company had purchased such policies on thousands of its employees but denied that it was profiting from their deaths. He argued that, first, the company paid the premiums. Second, the company had invested heavily in the employees' training, and his death was a financial loss. The insurance payout, he claimed, was simply to cover the cost of recruiting and training a replacement. The company's logic might seem plausible on the surface, but why does it still feel so wrong? What exactly is the moral error? Simply put, this practice leaves employees completely vulnerable. If a company stands to gain financially from an employee's death, it creates a perverse incentive to overwork them, pushing them to work late nights or even, in theory, orchestrating accidents to collect the insurance money becomes a chilling possibility. The deeper moral problem lies in the company's attitude toward its employees. In Sandel's terms, by creating a situation where an employee is worth more dead than alive, the company has objectified him. The employee is no longer a person, but a commodity on the company's balance sheet, a futures contract whose value has shifted from living labor to a cold investment. It's a morally twisted logic. And this was not an isolated case. Many Fortune 500 companies have engaged in this kind of morbid investment, often without their employees' knowledge. It took years for the U.S. government to pass laws restricting these policies and requiring the employees' consent. But even then, companies can still entice employees to sign away their rights through benefit packages. Investment schemes centered on death continue to proliferate, with Wall Street placing public bets on everything from the life expectancy of AIDS patients and the elderly to the untimely demise of celebrities. As talk show host Larry King once quipped, "For all I know, my policy is held by a hedge fund on Wall Street or a mafia godfather." Clearly, in these domains, money has dragged humanity into a moral vortex. Let's recap Professor Sandel's core argument. In our time, many people have come to believe that money is the ultimate solution. Sandel argues that the greatest danger of this belief is how it silently erodes and reshapes our lives, often without us even noticing. The unlimited expansion of money and markets not only worsens social inequality and corrupts our civic life, but it also places us at enormous moral risk. When we think about some of the most shocking social crises in recent years, many are tied to this issue. The decay of public morality, where simple acts of kindness are replaced by transactions and basic decency becomes a calculated risk, gives us a first-hand sense of the destructive power of misapplied market logic. After hearing this summary, you may no longer take it for granted that money can solve everything. There is no denying that the market is a valuable and efficient tool, but its rules are not universally applicable. We must think carefully about when to use financial incentives and when to absolutely refuse them, because in many situations, money is not only ineffective, it can do lasting harm. That's all for today. Congratulations on finishing another book, and I look forward to our next meeting.